ballot a little bit today, too. Where are we on Chase Utley and Joe Mauer? Also, the Red Sox are doing clever things with their pitching staff, and managerial check on Aaron Boone last night. Yeah, but first, are we seeing a comeback for two of the top players in baseball? Redemption watch, possibly, for Cody Bellinger and Christian Yelich. Let's do a little digging in. Take yourself back to 2019. The top players in baseball, basically, are Mike Trout and Bellinger and Yelich. Yelich just led the National League in all three slash-line categories, batting average, on base, and slugging. That's tough to do. Bellinger, though, led the league in total bases, played a stellar outfield, and played 26 more games. He won the National League MVP. Yelich was 27, had back-to-back great years. Bellinger was only 23. They look like superstars who had established themselves. But both would be derailed by injuries. Bellinger inexplicably hurting his shoulder during the forearm bashing celebration. Let that be a lesson to you kids. While Yelich fouled a ball off his kneecap, he'd later have back trouble. Either way, both would plummet. Not just miss time, but I'm talking fall off the map. All right, so here they are in 2019. Take a look at the OPS plus for both. 100 is league average, 179, 167 in 2019. MVP level, crazy. Then look at the following 3 years. Yelich goes down to like league average, 110, 101, 110, essentially. Bellinger falls off the map, 112. Okay, that's in the short season. And then 44, 80. I mean, that's dropping off. In the history of baseball, there has rarely been this type of disappearing act. And it happened to two guys in the same period. You see the numbers getting better this year? Yeah, started to look like they were gone for good. But happily, you see the numbers this year. 4 years later, signs of life from both. Yelich has the kind of slash line that he had in his Marlins days. Not MVP level, but it's quite good. Hitting 286, good on base, good slugging. The weighted runs created plus is 132. By the way, he's also playing plus defense again, and he's 21 for 23 in steal attempts. So let's dig deeper for the hitting. StatCast is powered by Google Cloud, and this is what StatCast can do for you. We want the process numbers. His ex-WOBA, the expected weighted on base, in his peak seasons, I mean, it's crazy. It's up at 417 and 429. It's not that now. It slid down to the 330s, and now it's back at 381, the highest it's been since 2019. His exit velo and his barrel rate, all the contact numbers say this comeback, that we're talking about, is for real. He's not back where he was, but this is an impact player. That's big news for the Brewers, who are battling for the division title. As for Cody Bellinger, more good news. The change of venue has worked wonders. He's now hitting 300 for the Cubs, good on base, slugging over 520. Weighted runs created plus, 100 being league average, 136. Again, like Yelich, not back to the heyday, but good, solid production. He's also cut back on his strikeouts a lot. Back to StatCast. Bellinger's ex-WOBA in the big year 2019, you see 430, very high. That's the quality of the contact. 430 is insane. He's now back at 310, which is good. Not great, but it's good. But he's way above where he was the last 2 years. So Bellinger, remember, he's only 27 now, also plays plus defense. Good to see. See the strikeout rate dropping down once again. Two former superstars battling back. All right, here at the panel, Ron Darling, Tom Verducci. Hello, fellas. Good to have you here.
Good to be here.
In from the storm, briefly. It's storm down here. Bob Costas will join us in a moment. In the history of the game, Ronnie, this is rare. Both guys were so great. Normally, if you're that great at that age, you're a Hall of Famer. I thought both were gone for good. I'm heartened to see there's a bit of a comeback here.
Yeah, well first with Yelich, he went from being a really good player for the Marlins to the most important player maybe in the game. Maybe not the MVP or maybe not the greatest player in the game, but the most significant player because he played for Milwaukee, small market team, always challenged offensively to score runs, and he became the biggest reason why they did score enough runs to get to the postseason. And when you're talking about Yelich, we're talking about a player that went from great to good to bad.
Yeah.
Like it was hard to watch him. And I think that before the season started, I think I was on this show, and I thought he had a chance to the comeback player of the year. Why? I think because there had to be some frustration on both parts, the Dodgers and Bellinger. There had to be some over-analysis with everything and every step that he did that I think he just needed a new voice, and in Chicago we found one.
Yeah, I know Andrew Friedman had said that it kind of became clear to him that if he was coming back, it just wouldn't be for us.
Yeah.
And that's the Dodgers. It's strange for that to happen. Do you think both were gone? You analyzed the hitting quite a bit, Tom?
Yeah, I remember looking at this a couple of years ago, and you're right. It's extremely rare for these players to be so young and so good and drop as far as they did. The only comps I could almost come up with that was close, Don Mattingly for Yelich. Of course, he had the back injury.
The back went out,
and
yeah.
couldn't get back to the same kind of power numbers he put up. And for Yelich, it was Jeff Burrows, who had that MVP year with Texas, went way down, actually came back later on with Atlanta, had a 41 home run season. But it was hard to find direct comps for these guys. I agree with Ronnie. I think change of scenery has something to do with actually both players. Let me explain. For Bellinger, I agree. He had the same people trying to help him as much as he could. He needed some new voices, needed just a whole new approach. And for Yelich, it's obviously stayed in Milwaukee, but he's a leadoff hitter, right? He's not a middle-of-the-order hitter. You talk to the people in Milwaukee, and they will tell you that what he did in those years, 18, 19, he doesn't even know how it happened. He fell into power. It's a weird thing to say. He is now the player that he always was other than those 2 years.
Yeah.
High on-base percentage guy who hits a lot of ground balls, who's a great base runner, great defender. It's a negative arm in the outfield, but he's a good defender out there. He's a fantastic leadoff hitter. He gets on base. His run scoring percentage is really high. He's the one who gets them going, but he's not going to be, I don't think ever again, that power hitter that he was.
Yeah, which was, off the charts. Now, you guys...
Those 2 years, 18 and 19, 40 and 100 guy. That's who he was. And you mentioned the injuries, and I don't think we should overlook them. When you think of Yelich and the bad back, David Wright is not going to go in the Hall of Fame at the, because of the bad back. And the shoulder for Bellinger, remember Matt Kemp was, one of the best players in the game. Hurt his shoulder, and he wasn't the same player. Maybe that affected Bellinger as well.
You know what's fascinating to me? You guys both do top 10 right now with me. You drop in. You always do starting pitching. You'll be all around the infield and do that, Tom. For left field, it's a relatively weak field. Nobody took a flyer on Yelich. And we actually, and I won't name names, we had an analyst come in, and he had Yelich in his top 10. I think he had him like 7 or 8. Yeah. And when he heard that nobody else had Yelich on their list, he took him off.
No.
I said, no, don't do that. Think for yourself. It's the new group think. Like, no, we weren't putting pressure on him. We were like, yo, you're a dummy. We were saying, oh, nobody has. He's like, nobody has Yelich. Okay, maybe I shouldn't. But he had the track record that you could take a flyer on him. I'm just saying, like, we do write people off when they have a bad year or something. We write them off like for dead, essentially. I think 3 of us took like Bellinger, and I had Bellinger 10th in center field, so I found a spot for him. But it's fascinating to me that when guys go away a year or two, we basically say, okay, you're done.
Got to be careful, especially guys who've done it before and are this young. That's the key for me. These guys are still really good athletes at a younger age. It's not like, oh, age is creeping up on them, mid-30s, it's never coming back. These guys still have a lot of quick twitch fibers. They can run the bases well. Don't give up on those players who still have youth on their side.
Yeah. And you can't forget about that. At their height that you described, they are A-plus players. You still like them at B-.
Right. There's a long way to go on the way down and on the way back up. Let's bring in Bob Costas now. Bob, give us your thoughts here on what you've seen, because I haven't seen it. Good spot here by Tom Verducci. Jeff Burrows. I hadn't thought of him. I don't think we've seen this sort of thing before, where 2 guys who are so great slide so deep.
Yeah, I haven't thought about Jeff Burrows in a very long time, so I thank Tom.
Yes.
For that. When you think about Bellinger, who's only 28, the Cubs have no realistic shot at the playoffs. Too many teams to climb over. They might be willing to trade Bellinger. This is the last year of his contract, mutual option for 2024. Obviously, Yelich is not going anywhere because the Brewers are right in the thick of things. You think about Yelich, MVP in 18, second to Bellinger in 19. That MVP year for Bellinger is like off the charts. It's among the most elite recent MVP seasons. Plus, he had 39 homers as a rookie in 2017. So that was a precipitous drop. I don't know if this factors in nearly as much as the injuries, but for both, 2020 was the start of the decline. And for some players, that shortened season, the absence of a spring training, the weirdness of all of it, maybe that got them off track. Maybe it contributed in some way.
Yeah, and no high fives either, or forearm bashing, whatever he did.
Right.
Bob, how about this? I want to get the Brewers don't spend money, right? They're 20th in payroll. They're small market, essentially. I thought they were a little better, but you guys shouted me down on that. But they went out and went big money, a $200 million contract extension for Yelich. His AAV is $24 million. Bob, it's got to be a relief for the Brewers to find. It's like, okay, now we have a good player back. He doesn't have to be a superstar, but he's good for the one time that they went out and said, we're going to pay top dollar to keep this guy.
Yeah, it looked, when they first acquired him, when he came over from the Marlins, obviously he's one of the great players in baseball. And then there's that fall off, and you say, what are we getting for our money here? But this year it's begun to pay off. He's not, as Tom said, he's not the player he was in 18 and 19. But he's like the player he was with the Marlins. He's an exceptionally good player, no longer an MVP contender, but an exceptionally good player on a team that has a chance to go into the playoffs.
Right. And Abe, that was a big statement, too. I wanted to bring this up now because the Brewers beating the Reds 5 out of 6 when the Reds looked like they were about to start steamrolling the rest of the league with all their StatCasty guys. And, and the Brewers really made a statement there. Bob, stay right there. Bob's going to be in the show.